Well, hi everyone. We have a special program for us all today. We have a new member of our staff at Answers in Genesis, and his name is Peter Schremer. Well, we've been talking to Peter for quite some time, actually, and even before the whole COVID-19 situation, we had brought Peter on board to be a part of the Answers in Genesis ministry. But Peter's going to tell you a bit about himself, first of all. This is exciting. You know how you watch those programs on television, whether it's David Attenborough or some of those other nature programs, and you say, oh, couldn't we have nature programs, wildlife programs from a creationist perspective, from a Christian doing the narration? We have one. He's unique in the world. His name is Peter. And you're going to be absolutely amazed at what he's done. We're going to show you some video clips, and you'll be amazed at what he can do and will be doing. So first of all, Peter, I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background. You work for some intriguing secular companies, and yet you're a creationist and a Christian, and you were doing wildlife documentaries. How'd you do that? And as you talk to them, you'll also be telling them about what we're going to be doing through answers.tv and also through various live streams on social media for us. And they are, I know you call them vlogs, not
Yes.
blogs, but vlogs. So what do you mean by a vlog? Am I pronouncing that correctly? I mean, I'm the older generation. You understand that. You're the younger generation. And that's why you're going to be doing all these fun things. So there we are, just giving you about 20 questions to answer.
Okay, all right, I'll hit them all. And yes, they are vlogs, and so it's just a mashup of two words, video and blog. And so it just means it's an informal presentation where you take your camera with you on a journey or to an experience, or maybe you're just setting it up in the comfort of your own home and sharing thoughts and ideas. But vlogs are very popular these days, and so we'll be doing some of those very soon. But to share a little bit about me, I accepted the Lord when I was very, very small. Grew up in a Christian home. My grandfather was a minister, a pastor, and I just, at an early age, absolutely loved exploring God's creation. And I was homeschooled all the way through 12th grade, and I just had a blast with my family and going on adventures outside, going hiking, going exploring, and we just really loved engaging in God's natural world. And my mother, who was my main teacher, encouraged all of that in me. And I just dove into that as a young person, eating up as much information as I could about wildlife, about animals. And we were part of the Friends of Wildlife program, which was a rehabilitation program where my mom got certified to help rehabilitate and release orphan baby animals. And so we got, as children, we were part of this group where we were able to help raise and release baby bunnies and squirrels and connect with wildlife in that way, which is really exciting, and learn a little bit about what stewardship and conservation, taking care of God's creation, really meant. And so I grew up in a situation doing all these cool things. And then I decided when I was in high school that I wanted to be a wildlife filmmaker. And so I went to school to get a film degree so that I would be a good storyteller and know how to communicate and share my love of the natural world and God's creation with many, many people. And so I did that. And but right before that, actually, right before I went to college, actually, while I was still in high school, I had the privilege and opportunity that God gave me to create, write, and host a TV special called Beyond Your Doorstep with Peter Schremer. And it aired on PBS, and it won a National Broadcasters Award. And that was when I really got started with, this is what I want to do. I'm taking my love of God's creation, and I want to be able to share that love with the world. And
Hey,
so,
I didn't realize how famous you were. You already had that award from PBS. That's through the film through PBS. That's phenomenal.
yeah, so I did that when I was like 18 years old. And then after college, I got picked up by the Smithsonian Channel and got to produce a series for them called Critter Quest. And it was a hands-on nature show for young children to teach them how to experience the world outside their door. And that was a ton of fun to do. And so we produced some episodes for them. And then...
No, wait a minute. You work
Yeah.
for the Smithsonian?
Yes.
I wouldn't call them creationist, and yet you're a creationist and a Christian, and you were homeschooled and you're a filmmaker. How did that work out?
Well, it was really a God moment. I mean, God works in amazing ways. And what happened was, there's sort of two pieces to answer that question. One was God moving in a very powerful way. I was able to get to the head of the network of Smithsonian Channel the very year that they were created. And so I was being hired directly by the president of the network, and because they didn't have programming yet. And so they needed something like what I was providing, and I got to get picked up right out of the chute. And so I was able to do that. And then once I was in that situation, to your point, like, how do you deal with the fact, that I'm a creationist and I'm working with the Smithsonian Channel? Well, the good thing is because I was the writer of the show, I just made sure that the show had zero references to evolution whatsoever, and was presented from a Christian perspective without using the buzzwords. And so I've actually had parents email me saying, we're watching Critter Quest and we noticed that you don't mention evolution at all. Are you a Christian? And so it was kind of neat to be able to see people pick up on that aspect. And so I was able to produce for a big place like secular place like Smithsonian, and still be a creationist and be able to work with them on that. So that was a blessing.
Well, that is incredible. Hey, before we go on here,
Yeah.
how about I share a video clip of you? Now, you're a little younger in this one,
Yes.
but it has to do with one of your favorite animals, I think, porcupine. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I love porcupines.
Okay, we have porcupines actually at the Ararat Ridge Zoo at the Ark Encounter. So I'm going to do my best right now to share this on Zoom, and hope I don't, cause a problem here as we're trying to do all these things remotely. Isn't it great, the technology we have today, though, to be able to do this? So let me share this up here on the screen, and here we have the porcupine. All right, and so we'll play that and see what happens.
My favorite Northwoods creatures, the porcupine. Porcupines eat just about every single part of a tree. Inner bark, buds, twigs, seeds, even leaves. Since their food source is found all over the forest and it doesn't run away, porcupines don't have to move too fast.
There you go.
Now, wait a minute here. That was a porcupine in a tree?
It was. No, porcupines will climb up in trees all the time. They eat the inner bark. And in fact, back in the day, Native Americans, when they would be traveling from one village to another, would pass by and they'd look up in the tree, they'd see a porcupine. And since porcupines, sort of like sloths, don't go very quickly and sometimes hang out in the same place for a very long time, they would make note of it so that they would come back that way on the return trip in case they were looking for hunting some food. And so they hang out in trees a lot.
Well, Peter, I've been doing a lot of live streams in recent times, and down at Ararat Ridge Zoo and our animal experience area at the Creation Museum, and trying to do all these live streams to reach people, and particularly during the COVID-19 situation where the Creation Museum and Ark have been closed to the public. And you're going to be taking over a lot of those from me now, gradually over time, and doing a lot of things yourself in regard to, reaching kids and mums and dads with the creationist wildlife programs. And you're calling the new program for Answers in Genesis, let me get this right, I hope, Hike and Seek with Peter Schremer. Is that right? Hike and Seek with Peter Schremer. Well, why do you call it Hike and Seek?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it sort of has, for me, it has sort of two different meanings. One is your hike and seek. You're hiking out into the natural world and you're seeking, animals, wildlife, adventure, etc. But it's also, for us as Christians, we're hiking into God's creation, his world that he's made for us. And we're seeking his face. We're seeking evidence of him as a loving creator. And so I think it does both things for us. As we go into God's creation, we're looking for adventure, we're looking for wildlife, but it's also a place to connect with God and to see the evidence of his design and his love for us. And so that's where that title comes from.
Well, Peter, I was just looking over your shoulder there. You've got some creature there on the wall. I mean,
yes.
That looks like an owl to me. So why do you have an owl there? I mean, do you have a special love of owls?
I do, actually. And so this behind me here is a barred owl. And barred owls are, I love owls in general, but a barred owl in particular is special to me because I actually had a barred owl as the ring bearer at my wedding this past year. And so a barred owl came down the aisle on the fist of a handler with the rings. And so I had some of God's creation right there in the middle of the ceremony.
You had an owl bring the rings? I can't believe that.
Yes.
That would be fun. What did people do? Were they sort of shocked?
Yeah, they were all very quiet and big-eyed and just like, whoa. And so it was just a really fun moment for everybody.
That really is something. So do you know any facts about owls? I mean,
Oh, sure.
you one of these factoid people that know
I
all
am.
these intriguing facts about creatures?
Oh, yeah. So barred owls, we have about 18 species of owls in North America. And barred owls live in forests. They live in swamps. And they're called barred owls because they have these streaks that you can see on his chest there that kind of look like bars. And so that's why it comes with a barred owl name. They're one of the few owls in North America that have brown eyes. Almost all owls that you'll see in North America have yellow eyes, but these guys have brown eyes. And there's a fun thing that I can teach you, Ken, and those who are watching. So it's their call. And so you can distinguish their call between the barred owl and the great horned owl, which is also obviously a very common owl, by thinking of this phrase. So when a great horned owl calls, it sounds like it's saying, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you?" And when a barred owl, see, barred owls are sometimes considered southern owls, so they have a little bit of a southern drawl at the end. And so they go, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" at the end.
Oh,
And so that's how you can tell the difference when you hear them out in the wild.
all right, we got boys and girls watching. So why don't you do a test? Why don't you say one of those
Yes.
and then see if they can guess it right, and then we'll do this little test for the boys and girls.
Okay. All right. So I only did it once, so I'm going to do it again here. So, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Which one do you think it is? It's the southern owl, which actually lives up here in Michigan too, but it has a southern drawl. That's the barred owl. And then the other one, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? That's the great horned owl.
Well, there we are. Wow, you're going to do these sorts of things in all the programs that you do?
Yep, I'm intending on giving fun facts and fun tips on how to identify things in nature and God's creation as you guys go out and explore it.
Well, we're going to show another couple of video clips in a little bit, but even before we do that, when you've been out doing these wildlife documentaries or wildlife vlogs, you're a filmmaker, and I know you love doing this and you have an exciting time, but have you ever done anything that's caused you a problem, or, anything dangerous, or you get some funny stories or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're working with nature and wildlife, you always have some funny things that do end up happening. And there's always accidents and things that can go wrong when you're out there in the wild. One time it was, we were filming, and it was actually the clip you showed from the Porcupine. And the clips you're going to share are from a faith-based series I did called The Nature of God. And so after working with the Smithsonian Channel, I really wanted to produce a series that allowed me to not only reference God as the creator, but give him the glory for creation. And so we produced this series with Zondervan called The Nature of God. And so anyway, we were filming. That was the first day of filming. We hadn't even shot anything yet. And I'm walking along this boardwalk in this cattail marsh, and I have these big hip boots on and a net and a pole. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to step off the dock into the water so that they can film me from the dock as I'm like exploring through the cattails. And I'm checking the depth of the mud. And then I step in, and I stepped into a sinkhole. I didn't step onto everything else, and I just went down all the way and
disappeared.
I just disappeared. And so I had to go back. We had to clean up. We had to wash clothes before we could film anything that day.
So have you ever, like, I'm thinking of the crocodile hunter who used to go swimming with dangerous creatures. Have you ever done that?
Nothing that's like really dangerous, but stuff that could definitely sort of scare you if you did it. I was in an artificial lagoon at a wildlife zoo aquarium area down in Florida for filming for the Smithsonian Channel. And so I got in a wetsuit and got in this big artificial lagoon, and I had like a 9-foot nurse shark that was just swimming around in front of me. And that was a little intimidating. Now, the nurse shark was not going to eat me or attack me, but it's still 9 feet long. And so that was a little intimidating, but it was also exciting.
This might be the time that I should show a clip of one of your films here, one of your videos, but of a dolphin.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. So let me share the screen here and go to the dolphin and see what we have got.
Dolphins love interaction. They communicate with each other all the time through a system of squeaks, chirps, and clicks. They can even identify each other by the sounds of their voices. Dolphins also use sounds to see what's ahead of them and if danger is in the area. They make a click noise, and the sound wave travels through the water, bouncing off objects and returning to the dolphin. This is called echolocation and allows the dolphin to see what's ahead of it and if there are any predators, like sharks, in the area. It also helps them to find and catch their food, like fish, octopus, and squid. Since God is all-knowing, he provides each creature with what it needs to survive.
There you go.
Wow. You know what, Peter? I just so love, I've so wanted to see programs like that on television. Is that the sort of thing you're going to do in your hike and seek program for Answers in Genesis?
Well, I don't know if I'll be diving in the water with dolphins right away. I'm going to be focusing on stuff that anyone, wherever they happen to be, can do just outside by going to a park or going to a state area where you can go out into the woods and focus on those types of things. Not everybody lives next to dolphins, but that could be happening and down the road as well. But
you'll be able to actually use the animals at our zoo, our Ridge Zoo.
That's exactly right.
But there's lots of places that you can go to do all sorts of vlogs for these wildlife programs, and all from a Christian creationist perspective. So have you got sort of some ideas of some of the things we might see in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have focused on in my career teaching people about God's world is I love to focus on things that you can do. Like if you were to take your family out and explore somewhere, what could you do as a family? What could you experience together? What might you actually see? And so I focused a lot on North American wildlife because of that, because that's where we as Americans live. And so talking about beetles, talking about frogs and turtles and snakes, talking about birds that you might be able to see while you're on an adventure, mammals that you might be able to come across. So some of the animals that I'm thinking of that we might look at initially here in Hike and Seek might be taking an up-close look at beavers and what they do and how they make ponds and create habitat for wildlife. And looking at some bald eagles, looking at some owls, because we all love owls, and taking a look at sandhill cranes, which are one of North America's largest and tallest birds, and some really cool animals. God has created some amazing creatures, and they live all over the world. You don't have to necessarily travel to Africa or South America to see incredible creatures. They're right outside your door. You just need to know where to look for them and how to experience that natural setting.
Wow, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. What a phenomenal addition this will be for our Answers.tv, a streaming service to have at Answers in Genesis, to reach people with the truth of God's word. I mean, the Lord is just doing some wonderful things, and a lot of this has come about because of the COVID-19 situation. It's interesting how you then think outside the box, and God does different things and it gets you moving in different directions. And this is one of those that we're moving in, which I think is going to be a phenomenal asset for the Christian world. By the way, did you know that we're building a big enclosure at Ararat Ridge Zoo right now to have some cranes in there? That's part of our expansion of our zoo down there. I don't know particularly which cranes, but we are going to have an exhibit of cranes there. So that'll be exciting for us. So what about a couple of other strange things you might have done? I mean, I heard something about you holding a squid. Yeah,
actually it was an octopus. And so one of the cool things that I got to do when we were filming in Hawaii for The Nature of God is I got to hold this wild octopus right out of the ocean. And I have to tell you that holding an octopus still is the weirdest animal experience I've ever had in my life.
Is that right?
Yes, because they feel so bizarre if you ever hold one. So the one I was holding, its head was like the size of a softball. And it feels like a limp, slimy, wet bag when you're holding it. It just feels really weird. And the legs are everywhere. And you're holding this like sloppy head. And then as soon as it wants to move, the whole body becomes really hard and rigid. And it's this muscle. It's like this bodybuilding octopus that pushes against you and has all this strength. And so it's really amazing. And what I learned is that they like to be massaged between their eyes to keep them calm. And so I'm holding this octopus, massaging it between its eyes to keep it calm on camera while I have enough time to talk about it before letting it go back into the ocean.
I don't know how many people would have actually had the opportunity to massage an octopus like that.
Yes.
I'm sure that was an experience. So have you ever done anything with, say the bison, the buffaloes?
Yes, exactly. So actually, last fall, I've been filming a series of films for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service the last couple years, and we've been focusing on national wildlife refuges. And we have over 560 national wildlife refuges across the country, and they all exist for specific conservation reasons, either to protect a particular habitat or a particular population of wildlife, or it's a migratory stopping point for birds. And so there's always a story when you look at a wildlife refuge about conservation and caring for God's world. And so I've been featuring these different wildlife refuges, and last fall, we filmed at Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge in Southwest Oklahoma, which is the oldest refuge of the entire refuge system, and features lots of bison. So like after the slaughter of the bison, this was the first place that they reintroduced bison back into the Southern Great Plains. And so they started with 15 bison, but today they have over 750. And while we were filming, I was out there in the Great Plains with my filming crew and Fish and Wildlife staff, and we got surrounded by 350 bison, which I have to say was pretty intimidating.
I'm sure it was. I mean, I've been to Yellowstone National Park in a car, and you get surrounded by 3 or 4 buffalo, and I think, boy, that's a little intimidating. I can't imagine being surrounded as someone out in the field.
Yes.
By 350 buffalo. What?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And they've identified the wildlife staff there at the refuge, give them alfalfa pellets periodically. And so when they see the white truck of the Fish and Wildlife Service, they think it means food. And so we pull up and we get out and they start stampeding toward us, which made it even more intimidating that we had so many running across the plains right at us. But they stopped before they got to us. So that was good.
Oh, well, you've had some incredible experiences. Well, let's just share one more video clip so people can get the idea of the sorts of things that you do. And this time, we're going to share one about a frog.
The frog produces a chemical in its liver that is pumped through the frog's bloodstream. It acts like an antifreeze to keep ice from forming in the frog's cells. The frog can freeze solid with no brain activity or heartbeat for short periods. In the spring, the tree frog just thaws out and is ready to go again. God has created some awesome creatures. The frog's ability to change the color of its skin and produce a chemical in its body to survive freezing cold temperatures didn't happen on its own. It was pre-planned by God to best serve his purpose and show his glory.
Wow, that is really exciting. So you're going to give all sorts of interesting information like that as you do these vlogs, and
exactly
really they're wildlife little videos that you'll be doing, and maybe some longer documentary style as well, and all sorts of other things too. And you're going to produce a lot of these programs, so I'm sure people will be able to learn lots of fascinating information. And you'll talk about the creation, and you do deal with environmental issues, because people have the idea that Christians aren't interested in the environment, but we certainly are from a biblical perspective.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at when you look at our culture, Christians should be the ones who are most engaged with caring for the natural world, because we know the one who made it. We know the creator, and we know that we've been commanded to oversee his creation. And so being able to engage in that dialogue as Christians, I think, is really important.
And, Peter, I look forward to you even doing some programs with our 12 Stones Christian Academy students. They're going to love this. And I'm sure we can do some of that and put online as well. So the new program which will be appearing on answers.tv, along with other videos that you'll be doing. And we'll also live stream some of them on various social media platforms too. But answers.tv is certainly where they'll be able to see them all, as well as through live stream platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But we're not going to be showing everything on them. We're really concentrating now on putting a lot of our material, well, all of our material eventually, up on answers.tv, which is our own streaming platform. So, Disney Plus and Netflix and others have these streaming platforms. Well, the Lord has enabled Answers in Genesis to have our own streaming platform. And we can reach people all around the world, reach into people's homes. And we're in control of it, which is really, really good. And so, Peter, the new program, tell us what it's called again.
Hike and Seek with Peter Schremer, and we'll be exploring God's creation. I'll be sharing tips on how to get outside with your family and have the best experience possible.
That is fantastic. So keep watch on our website, and as we send out emails, and as soon as the first program is ready, we'll be letting you know how to go and view it. And we look forward to Peter doing all sorts of exciting things now over the coming years as we move ahead at Answers in Genesis to impact the world for God's word and for the gospel. And Peter, you won't need to try to, just use non-evolutionary words now. You can be very, very obviously outwardly Christian and creationist. And
yes,
I guess that'll sort of be like freedom to you, will it?
It totally will. And I'm extremely excited about that.
Well, that's great. Well, we look forward to seeing you in the very near future on the Hike and Seek with Peter Schremer. Schremer. It's not Schremer, right? It's Schremer.
No, it's Schremer.
Hike and Seek with Peter Schremer. Hey, Peter, welcome aboard Answers in Genesis. This is exciting. Kids, mums and dads, what an incredible opportunity we're going to have. God is good. And so we'll talk to you again another time, Peter. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, bye-bye.